guess it was the late 90s was when I started saying, there's a whole lot of people who've been involved in doing this kind of work. And we were hitting our 40th anniversary. I said, what, we should do something. We should do, and I called it a wall of fame at first. And I said,
I was going to get to that and ask.
we called it a wall of fame. And somebody said, yeah, that sounds like a good thing. So I pitched it to the 11-member Board of Commissioners. They liked it. And this would be people, we said, who have been involved in helping to expand and create opportunities in Kentucky. We already had the Gallery of Great Black Kentuckians. It had existed, of individuals who were African Americans who had done significant things. I said, and some of them already exist in our gallery, so we need to look at those to see if there's someone in that gallery that needs to be put into the Hall of Fame. I said, and then we'll do it. We won't make the selection. We'll let the public do it. We'll let them end up giving us nominations, and we'll have a committee that does that. They said, well, how are you going to do the committee? I said, we're going to do it blindly. Because I had done something like this once before. I said, we don't want them in a room arguing about this person or that person. We want it to be done based on what people put on paper, and we'll have to make sure that people do that. Well, the first year.
First year was 2000?
Yes.
Okay.
The first year, a couple of people didn't make it. And one of them was Ann Braden. And that was not a good year for us. Because somebody just said Ann Braden should be in the Civil Rights Hall of Fame, and that's all they said. Well, for Louisvillians, we knew who Ann was. But for people of the committee, which was statewide, some of them didn't know Ann. So Ann didn't get the votes. So that was really one of those faux pas. So we said, oops. So we went back to the process. When you nominate people, this is what you need to put in. We just sent out a form and expected it to come back. We then did a whole lot of work. Ann and a number of others who didn't make it the first year then went in. Mm-hmm. So we did that. Louis Coleman made it because Louis knew everybody all over the country.
Reverend Louis Coleman.
Right. Mm-hmm. Galen Martin made it in that first year because Galen had been the director for 27 years. So there was a lot of people. But we had a couple of things going on. Ben Chandler was the Attorney General. Ben was on our advisory committee. We had a whole lot of people who were on the advisory committee. Everybody wanted to be involved. And it was wonderful. And we streamed it on the internet, the whole ceremony. I'm like, who was streaming? What's that? So we streamed it on the internet, and it was a great ceremony, and it was really about the people. And Gary Bibbs, the artist, put up this thing that looks like a bridge That was, and I don't even know where that piece is. It still exists. I think it's in Gary's studio somewhere in Lexington. It was huge. It had all these pictures, and we spent money and actually laid out the 40-year history with lights and cameras and stuff. We had a huge exhibit and got a great deal from a company up in northern Kentucky and supplied them with everything, and we really did capture great.
To give these people their due. Well, Beverly, when you started this Hall of Fame, did you ever expect that you'd be inducted in it?
Not really, not really. And so this is 2000. And we're working on a variety of things, and we had it, and then I think we decided to have it, I don't know if we had it every year or every other year. So we did a second induction, at least 2 other inductions while I was still the executive director. And then I think they went to every other year. Well, in 2004, I left. And then in 2005, somebody says, we want to nominate you. I said, what? And they did. And they inducted me in 2005. So, hey, that was never my intent. My intent was to make sure that we had people who some people don't always recognize. In every community across Kentucky, there are people whose names you may not have known, who were more significant or as significant as those names that are well known, whether it's a Dr. King or a Louis Coleman or somebody else or Georgia Powers. Their names are well known. Some of them were ministers, some were doing day-to-day work, some were just toiling in the vineyards to make sure that things in Paducah, Kentucky went the way they should, and people were not abusing people because of their color. Or they had been working in the women's movement for a long time, and they had helped to do things that improved the lot of women in their communities. And this is what it was always about, and that's who is in the Hall of Fame. Some kind of way, I'm in the Hall of Fame. John Johnson, who is the current director, is in the Hall of Fame. Darrell Owens is in the Hall of Fame. Gerald Neal, Carla Wallace, you name it, people who were doing what they believed was right at the time. The interesting piece about Gerald Neal is Not only is Gerald Neal Jr. and Gerald Neal Sr. No, Gerald Neal's father, Sterling Neal Sr. is in it as well. So the father-son piece, because his father was a big organizer and union worker. So he's in along with Senator Neal. So those are the kinds of people that we saw. Some names are better known than others. Some of them aren't. And they're in towns as far away as you can get, in the hills and the hollers out in eastern Kentucky, or in, down in the river towns in western Kentucky. It was just, who are they? And we let those names come in. We had a statewide committee that would do that. I didn't get involved. We had 2 offices, one here and one in Covington. Well, guess where those nominations went? They didn't come into our office. They went to Covington, where there were less people, less eyes peering, and then they sent them out and everything came back. So it wasn't the CPA company, but we kept it pretty much the wall up and those kind of things.
So Beverly, how did the foot soldiers, how did they react when you told, when it was announced that they had been chosen for the Hall of Fame? Because I think foot soldiers don't expect.
Right. That's what happened. And people were nominated because they had kept the NAACP going, or they'd kept the women's group going, or they had confronted people about issues in their towns. And they said, we did it because it was the right thing to do. And that was something they said, and we never thought we'd get an award for that. And so those were the kinds of things, and those were the kinds of people. Some of them, we even had to pay for them to come to the event. And we didn't have a lot of money. Some of them were deceased, and we had family members come and those kind of things. And we put the pictures up of the family members, and it was amazing to see. We had an event here at the old facility downtown on Muhammad Ali, right behind City Hall. What is that? It was the old convention center.
Oh, the Louisville Gardens?
Yes,
Yeah,
Louisville
okay.
Gardens, that's where it was, the Louisville Gardens. And we went, and people would find their family members and take pictures in front of them, especially those. And sometimes the family members were with them, sometimes they weren't, but that was an interesting thing to watch them. Some of them brought their children and their grandchildren. And then we had another event, I believe one was in Frankfurt, and the same thing happened.